The pie was as delicious as it looked, and later I played Daft Punk and other fun music while Selena brought out her colored pencils and made me a birthday card. Once all of the art supplies were out on the open floor, Sonia and Toby joined in, both drawing two of the cutest birthday cards that I've ever received. Toby's was almost like a comic strip with a stick man and a series of ladders and hearts. But my favorite part of the night was Selena's card. The front was multi-layered with a brilliantly colorful heart cut into the paper that said, "Andrew, happy birthday," in the center. Inside was a note that touched me. It read, "Keep being you. I'm happy you are learning and sharing so much with others." Below those words were stick people hugging and holding hands, glowing in a golden light. But I couldn't stop looking at the top where she wrote, "Hallelujah, you made it. I love you." That part touched me the most, but I had not yet said "I love you" to her, and it was surprising to read. Was it love or just a positive sentiment? I wasn't sure how she meant it, but I was afraid that if I asked about it, I would be disappointed. The party stretched on into the night as we made up silly games involving balloons. I met some other cool people who lived nearby that Selena had invited, but eventually Selena and I hugged each person goodbye, thanking them for coming. That evening, Selena and I drifted off to sleep beside one another, once again wrapping ourselves in her blue and white striped blanket. It was the end of a beautiful day, and I felt so grateful for everything that Selena had done. The following morning, I learned more about Selena's complex past. No doubt sensing that our relationship was growing deeper, she told me about how she'd once been married. Her husband had been a domineering man, and their marriage hadn't lasted long. That morning, we opened up to each other more and more, and I felt closer to her than I had to any woman in years. After eating a simple breakfast, Selena asked me if I wanted to join her and head over to Ecstatic Dance, and that sounded like a great idea to me. When we arrived, I was happy to see about 100 people dancing on the long floor, and soon Selena and I were dancing along with them. To be honest, Selena seemed so confident on the dance floor that I felt slightly intimidated. It was clear that she'd been to E-Dance many times, whereas I felt like I barely knew how to dance in the first place. I tried to get out of my head. Dancing well wasn't the point. The point was to have fun and not censor myself. A real challenge for me at the time. But I did my best to have fun, reminding myself that the whole point of E-Dance is to move however you like. It is definitely not intended to be a performance, so I focused on having fun and not what I looked like. A funny thing happened when I stopped worrying. It freed me up to really appreciate what everyone around me was doing, to really see the beauty of their motion. And when I looked over to Selena, she was totally on fire. She moved with such passion and joy that I felt momentarily stunned. On the dance floor, she was the embodiment of flowing, feminine energy with absolutely no inhibition. It was incredible. After E-Dance, Selena asked if I wanted to come with her to the Seaview lawn, where some of her friends were having a potluck. Of course, I agreed, and soon we were at the same wide lawn I had walked past the week before on my way to space. But this time, a dozen or so people had collected in the middle of the verdant lawn. Blankets were spread out, and there were a few large bowls of food. We walked up, and I was pleasantly surprised at the beauty and variety of the cuisine. There was fresh fruit, quinoa, mashed purple poi, vegetable salad, avocados, breadfruit salad, and more. Even better, Noah from Cinderland was there. He had cut his hair really short, but his warm smile and kind energy hadn't changed at all. At seeing me, he opened his arms, inviting a big hug. It was so great to see Noah again. It had felt like months. He told me that he'd been on Oahu, and due to an unfortunate series of events, he had been homeless for a few weeks while he was there. He had a lot of stories to tell, and just hearing his voice again felt reassuring. Selena introduced me to a few of her friends, mostly older women whose strength and kindness were obvious before they even spoke a single word. The eldest, Janine, spoke with a thick accent, and I wondered what her story was. She was probably in her late 60s and had a shock of red in her dark hair. She wore the aloha spirit with ease and was passionate about the fruit of the island. The rest of the day passed by in a wash of gratitude and beauty. The weather was perfect. From the Seaview lawn, I could see the Pacific Ocean hug the horizon around us, and even though I hadn't prepared for a potluck, Janine embodied non-judgment, assuring me that I should have as much as I wanted. The food soothed my stomach and charged up my body, and as Selena strummed out a sweet song on her ukulele, my heart swelled with gratitude for her playful, musical nature. I felt so thankful for my life, for the beautiful people around me, and for the magnificent island I was lucky to call my home. Later that week, I ran into Selena again at the one place every Puna resident finds themselves at some point, Island Naturals Market. I saw her across the aisle and waved, her eyebrows flashing as she recognized me. "Aloha, good to see you." "You too," she said. "I was thinking about you earlier today." "Yeah? There's going to be this thing." She stopped, putting her finger over her mouth. "There's a Halloween event over at the Haas School, and there's a great haunted house they made, but I'm not sure." I squinted, studying her expression. She seemed confused again. "What? Do you want to go?" She winced. "No, I'm not sure if it's a good idea." "Okay, because it sounded like you were inviting me, but maybe I misinterpreted you." "How's it going at the meditation center?" Then I winced. "I feel you're changing the subject." "Excuse me," another customer said, and I suddenly felt self-conscious, moving to the side of the aisle to let a woman pass by. "Well," Selena continued, smirking, "if I were inviting you, which I haven't made up my mind on yet, would you even want to go?" Something about the indirect way she was communicating annoyed me. I saw it as another manifestation of her uncertainty about our relationship. Did she like me or not? And if she didn't see a future for us, why even bring this haunted house up in the first place? I inhaled deeply. Well, I don't usually say yes to someone unless they're clear about what they want. But if they were clear, I would say that it's something I am interested in. We continued walking around the store, perusing the deli, which had an impressively diverse sandwich selection for such a small store. "Okay," she finally said. "I was thinking about Thursday after my work shift at the school. Do you want to meet me there?" "Sure." "You know where this Haas school is, right? Because I've never been there." "Yeah, I've been there before." She headed toward the registers to get in line, saying something about texting me. "Okay." I waved a vague farewell, feeling odd about the whole exchange. Did she want me to come or not? I guessed that she was experiencing some conflict over spending time with me, and that made sense. After all, her ex-boyfriend had only been off of the island for a couple months, maybe less. I never did get the entire story. All I could do was piece together the clues she would say about their occasional conversations. Wednesday contained the usual fun. Rosella met me near Uncle Robert's and drove me over to her place. For that session, we saved 2 of her web domains from expiring, and I gave her a crash course on using WordPress for the first time. She was so happy afterward, and that evening I soaked in the comforting sounds of Uncle Robert's band, relishing their versions of Ride, Sally, Ride and Margarita. I don't usually journal in the evening, but when I returned home, I felt compelled to write. Heading over to the little cubby in the far corner of the room, I sat down at my MacBook, the dim lighting lending the wood an orange hue. Instead of writing my positive affirmations that I usually rewrite each morning, I shortened it to a single line before writing what was on my mind. At the time, I had no idea that I might actually publish this entry in a book someday. I only wrote it because I needed to reflect. But in retrospect, I'm so glad that I did, because it crystallized my feelings at the time, providing a kind of emotional portal that lets me jump back to that odd chapter in my life. Here's an excerpt of what I wrote that evening. 2013, October 23rd, Wednesday. I love my life. Ever since Sunday morning, I find my thoughts are ever drawn to Selena. She has repeatedly said she wants to take things slow, with her healing heart and all. But when she drew near on Sunday morning and our fingers interwove and her breath on my neck and her face close to mine, I couldn't help but kiss her on the cheek. In retrospect, perhaps a weak move. I must have been worried that in her confused state, a kiss might scare her off. I continued, trying to reflect on the positive. I love her very much, and perhaps the lesson we have arrived at is one of courage. The need to accept endings and death. Once I am no longer afraid, I become invincible, a force of nature.